your martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
Talk. I know Kung Fu.
You know, baby.
Fists of Fail. Did you know that when Chuck Norris does push-ups, he's not pushing himself up, he's pushing the earth down. And we need to include the obligatory Chuck Norris joke because it's his birthday.
Today?
I don't know. Whenever we're releasing this, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, we wanted to celebrate Chuck Norris's birthday because have we ever spoken about any of his films in its own episode? Because we covered Silent Rage in a Halloween bargain bin episode. We didn't feel it could contribute to an entire episode on its own, but it was kind of a fun watch, and we lumped it into Halloween, so that's what we did. And for his birthday, I wanted to talk about a movie, and so I went down a rabbit hole trying to find the best Chuck Norris fights. And I started, oddly enough, with the movie Sidekicks. And we're not talking about that movie, but I remember watching his fight scene where he fights Joe Piscopo. And that fight is hilarious. And I posted it online and I asked some people, hey, like, what are some good Chuck Norris fights? Obviously, Way of the Dragon. We've spoken about that one before.
We've talked about that, yeah.
It's a really good fight between him and Bruce Lee. But then when I thought about it, I didn't really remember any Chuck Norris fights that stuck out or people really recommended. So I asked the internet, and some people gave me some recommendations. And that just took me down a rabbit hole, mainly in Tubi, actually almost entirely in Tubi, to look up Chuck Norris movies. And that's what I did, and that's what we're doing. We're talking about Chuck Norris movies on Tubi.
Yeah, you said before that the only other time that we really dedicated any time for Chuck Norris, a Chuck Norris project was Silent Rage, which is a bargain bin episode. So guess what? We're doing another bargain bin episode. Because, let me start off by saying I don't follow Chuck Norris besides the memes. I mean, the only thing that I know him for is that Mike Huckabee ad that he did forever ago when Mike Huckabee was trying to run for president and he had Chuck Norris appear in his ad.
Oh,
it was like less.
Don't even remember that at all.
Yeah, it was like less of a campaign ad for himself and more like vote for Chuck Norris because it's like Chuck Norris is stealing all the charisma in that ad. Anyways. I don't follow Chuck Norris. I don't particularly like his movies because I knew it's a more dated quality and like it's more generic action category, which nothing wrong with that, but he's also not a great actor. So a lot doesn't excel for me.
He has an archetype, which is mustached man. And then it's strange when he doesn't have a mustache in some of his movies. But anyway, he's Chuck Norris. You know what it is? It's interesting because in his earlier movies, he kind of is generic action man, martial arts guy, sometimes doing weapons, sometimes doing the gunplay stuff, generic gunplay, mainly because he got famous for the mission in action movies. But he just kind of got blown out of proportion because of the memes, because of Walker Texas Ranger, and then the internet latching onto the exaggeration of his character. So it's kind of funny that a lot of people know him for being this supreme, godlike action presence. But then when you go back to watch his earlier movies, he's just regular guy who knows martial arts and he's just better than everybody. But that's any generic action movie guy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd hate to put him into a corner there, but after Way of the Dragon, you think that his career can... well, maybe not his career. His career obviously soared after Way of the Dragon, right? But his performance and anything that makes for a good action star kind of peaked with Way of the Dragon. Everything I've seen him in, or like clips rather that I've seen him in, nothing really impressed me. It could be... I'm not saying it's anything against him. It's just like maybe the people he's working with, all the production. It just seems like it wasn't up to my standards of like entertaining. And oh boy, when you went down this project and watched 12 different Chuck Norris movies, I was so dreading that I had to help you out with it, because I watched 3. 3, which we'll talk about in detail today. We'll leave that up to as a surprise as we go along with this episode. But I'm glad that I only watched 3, because I can't imagine having to sit through more of these. Because I also watched Sidekicks as a kid, but I was like, oh god, I do not want to watch that again. Because that's like the one movie I remember being semi-enjoyable, but that's because I was a kid. And I do not want to ruin the one good memory I have.
Sure. I haven't watched that movie in a long time. We're not talking about it. But I want to say it probably holds up. But you're laughing at it a little more because it's meant for children. And some of the things are just taken out of proportion. But so yes, I watched more Chuck Norris movies than you. Trying to look for a good fight scene so we could narrow down one movie. And as you can tell, this experiment failed because we're talking about multiple movies.
Like all his movies.
So I'll start off. Some people recommended Lone Wolf McQuade. Now, he fights... Oh, crap. What's the guy? Bill?
Nye the Science Guy.
Oh, God, that'd be great. No, David Carradine. He fights David Carradine in the final fight on that movie. And the movie itself is not horrible. It's, I don't know, it just wasn't memorable to me. It's a little slower paced, kind of generic action. And then when you get to the end, it's David Carradine versus Chuck Norris. And it's also just not memorable either, unfortunately. I was hoping that because you have 2 bigger martial arts names, the fighting would be okay. And what you have is just a back and forth between the 2 actors. It's like Chuck Norris will do a few combinations. They'll get to one side of the screen. And then David Carradine will take over. He'll do his combinations. They get to the other. And it's just like a back and forth. And the only thing that's visually memorable about that fight is David Carradine is doing... He's overdoing the Tai Chi hand movements a little too much. I don't know if he's trying to pantomime some Bruce Lee hands or something, but it's just a little too much, but it's fine.
Sure. Well, was this after Texas Walker Ranger?
Texas Ranger?
Dyslexia, yeah.
Where did that... No, Texas Ranger I think came in 93.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because it doesn't really matter. Like, David Carradine really got his big break after Kung Fu, right?
Yes.
It's like, it'd be kind of funny to watch, 2 literal TV icons go against one another. Okay, how's the rest of the movie?
It's not bad. It's easy to sit through, but I was hoping for better fights. It's just a lot of American brawls. From what I recall, I didn't rewatch it for this episode, but I watched it not too long ago. And I thought, okay, this is a good start. It's not his best fight, but okay, let me keep going. Let me try to find some other Chuck Norris movies. And that led me to a film called Eye for an Eye. And he teams up with Mako in that movie.
Oh, okay. Which
is kind of fun. But also, the whole movie is doing a disservice to Mako as a, on-screen martial arts presence. Because in every fight scene, Mako is getting beat up and Chuck Norris has to save him.
Wait, it's not. He's not a comic relief character, right? Not like the.
He's not.
He's pretending to know martial arts, but Chuck Norris is like the real martial arts master.
No, like Mako also knows martial arts, and in a bunch of scenes they fight together. But it's always Mako getting his butt kicked, or getting like somebody grabs him from behind, and Chuck Norris is like, "Oh, Mako," and he has to like help him out.
Okay,
and
all right, but
the fights in that are like a little better. They get a little better. There's a little more group stuff. It feels a little more choreographed, but ultimately just not memorable either. It's also a generic action movie where in the end a lot more gunplay comes in and people are just shooting and whatnot. Chuck Norris fights. He fights the guy Sub-Zero from The Running Man. I don't know if you recall that actor. Huge sumo wrestler, Japanese guy.
Oh, vaguely. Yeah. Okay, vaguely remember that. Okay. All right. Does the action in that department good, or is it just like it's just memorable because we have a big guy there?
It's Chuck Norris versus the big guy, and it's just like slug, and he's like, ha 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 ha, I felt nothing.
Okay. Oh my god! And that movie's okay too. Entertaining.
It's kind of entertaining. It's okay. It can get a little slow. Another memorable thing is Chuck Norris does the Bruce Lee intimidation kick to a ceiling light, and he misses. But in the edit, it breaks. Funny enough, and it sets off. It sets off fireworks, and it's a distraction for some stuff. It's like, yeah. It's. The movie's it's a little forgettable, but
okay.
Better.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's use that as the launch pad for talk about the 3 movies that we decide to talk about, because these are considered the better ones, or at least the ones you recommended that we talk about. So I actually went out and watched these, and I'm very grateful that you spared me watching like 9 more of these movies. All right. What should we start with first? Let's talk about your favorite of the 3 of these. And I know we both know which one we're saving for last, but let's talk about your favorite, which is Invasion USA.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, wait. Before I say my obligatory, I thought this movie was boring, which I'm going to keep repeating in this episode. It was entertaining at parts, but this is still boring. All these movies are boring.
Yeah. So I think I like this one the most because I think the action is great, but we can't really cover it because it is more action, gunplay, explosions, and barely any martial arts. I don't even think he fights anybody. I think he just shoots people in this movie.
Yeah. Him and his double Uzis that he has in both hands. He's just like he has it like underneath his armpits.
Literally just like walking around some office like, is there somebody here? Let me open fire on it.
Oh man, but I do really enjoy this movie because apparently the NRA show this movie as like a welcome, what does it say right here?
A welcome to immigrants?
No, oh my god, they use this as an educational video on why gun ownership is important.
Because just in case invading countries come in, we need to know how to double wield Uzis against them.
Okay, all right. So let's take that piece of trivia and let's expound on that a little bit, because this movie is everything that you expect from like 80s white suburbia. Like this is the movie. This is that movie. What is the story, Zero?
I don't even remember. I think it's just other countries are secretly banding together to invade the USA. That's it, right?
It is. All right.
And somehow Chuck Norris is able to stop all of them? Like all the countries invaded?
One man. Chuck Norris is... So, okay, let's back up. The terrorists want to bring down America, right? It's like, it's a team of Germans, the Russians, I think there was like, I don't know, like there's an Asian in there, whatever, like America bad, like we need to take it down. So like, this is just watching the pinnacles of American society, just like the milestones rather that you think of when you think America, and just watching it just like be threatened by a potential foreign threat. And just, it's hilarious because like how fickle white people are, or like the idea of like how like the perfect white America can be potentially ruined because foreigners want to literally invade and ruin everything, right? So there's literally a scene where the family is setting up Christmas trees outside and the terrorists just fucking blow up the house, and you just see this little white girl just like stumbling out, like she's like hurt, and they're trying to like protect her, and it's supposed to be like a devastating scene. But for me, it's kind of funny because it's just so like over the top, and that basically sums up the entire mood. The tone of the movie is very anti-foreigner, very anti, like, yeah, America, and Chuck Norris is going to be the one person to save us all.
I mean, it's almost like wish fulfillment for people who own guns. Almost like, I wish this would happen so I could use my gun on foreigners. And when I say foreigners, it's probably like, no, people of color really is what they want to use their guns on. Like, this movie is just an excuse to shoot people that you don't like.
Yeah, basically. Man, this, God, the movie is kind of it's like talking about a race war, or like setting up a race war, right? Because like, as you can see, like the terrorists are infiltrating America in the movie, and they'll play like cops, and then as cops they'll gun down a bunch of like minorities, and then the minorities like look to the cops as if like they're villain, like they're bad guys, because obviously they've been framed. So obviously cops can't do no wrong. That's the movie, the message of the movie. It's like, it's like, the prospect of a race war in this film is like, oh, it's not our fault. It's the terrorists. Us white folks, we're completely exonerated from that. Because if it's anything, if it's gonna happen, it's because of everything outside of our control. And when's Chuck Norris coming to save us?
I don't understand how he's able to just save the entire continent of the United States of America. It's so weird because he's kind of state hopping, but not really.
That's true.
Like
where is this?
Bouncing around, and it feels so local. It feels like this is just happening in one town, but when you watch the movie, it's happening supposedly all over the United States.
I didn't even draw that connection. You're right, because I kept thinking that this was all taking place in one small town. And this is obviously, 85 when it came out? It's very cute how Americans, or like Americans like Joseph Zito when he directed this, thought how terrorism worked. It's like quaint and cute. It's like, oh, look, it's so small. They're gonna do like tiny little things here and there, like in a pre 9/11 world. It's, as you're watching the film, at least when I was watching the film, I thought like, okay, they're just attacking one small town. So obviously Chuck Norris, this one person, can save the day because he's just following them. But for him to travel around the country, that would make no sense at all.
Well, they're attacking our freedoms, literally. They attacked the suburban homes, and then they attack our shopping malls, our precious shopping malls that are now just deserted and dead.
The church, oh my god, when that church scene happened, I was laughing so hard. Like, of course, the terrorists are gonna attack church because it's the most sacred of places. You can't attack a church. And of course, Chuck Norris blows up a bunch of folks in a very wish fulfillment kind of moment. And then I thought it couldn't top that, but no. Then a school bus full of children, white children, are on this bus, and a bomb gets planted on the side of it as it's driving, and these kids are unaware that Chuck Norris is trying his darndest to detach this bomb off of the truck because they're too busy singing "Row, row, row your boat."
they were so close to total annihilation. Thank God for Chuck Norris.
It is so bad. Like, this is very much a product of its time, and I cannot believe people to this day still view this movie as like some sort of like warning sign.
It's like
of things to come.
It's what if.
What if? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's fine. It's funny because of all these things. I mean, I don't know. Like, I really enjoyed watching this. I liked seeing how you can translate all of this into you never know if something might happen. Us Americans need to just, I don't know, arm ourselves in case all these terrorists come together in one singular office building, and all of the United Armed Forces are just outside the building and still can't kill them all. It's so strange.
Oh my god. Yeah, and well, okay, let's talk about the story really quickly, because I think it'd be worth mentioning Richard Lynch, who's the villain of the movie. I think he's probably the thing that saves the movie, or at least like elevates it a little bit, because I mean, Chuck Norris is.
That's Richard Lynch. I thought that was Rutger Hauer.
Oh man, he kind of does look like.
Looks like him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess he'd be too young in this movie to look like that. But I guess like modern day Rutger Hauer looks just like him in this movie. But anyways, watching this film, Richard Lynch is like probably the best thing in the movie, and his character is just deathly afraid of Chuck Norris. Like, I mean, why wouldn't you? He has another fist underneath his beard, so like, why wouldn't you be afraid of him, right? So he's like doing everything he can to get rid of Chuck Norris from ruining his plans, but then Chuck Norris is like, nah, I'm gonna kill you anyways. And yeah, because Chuck Norris is like unstoppable in this film.
He really is, yes.
I don't even understand how he's always one step ahead of everyone. It doesn't make any sense. He just knows.
He's one step ahead, and he even has time to just sit and watch TV in his like hotel bedroom. He's not even planning. He's just watching television.
Yeah, I don't get it. And there's I mean, that's really the characters to point out. There's a female journalist character who is written to be very annoying.
She just kind of keeps on popping up every now and then.
Yeah, and just to complain.
To complain and then just disappears.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah. And yeah, we had to talk about the story at least a little bit, or at least the characters, because I couldn't really latch on so much to the movie. I thought the story was, it was simple, I guess. It was cartoony and ridiculous, and I cannot believe people take this movie seriously as a warning. But yeah, like that's not the reason I want to watch it. I'd say the reason to watch it is for the explosions.
Yes.
And there's a lot of explosions.
Lots of gunfire, lots of shooting.
Yeah. This is a canon film, so
yeah,
of course
canon.
It has to
Yes. If there, canon films generally have rocket launchers in them. At least the ones I've seen. Canon makes sense, but oh man, yeah, when they get into that office building, they just shoot up all the walls, and
yeah,
it's fun. It's fun to be had if you like that kind of stuff. It's no it's no, classical John Woo style bullet ballet, but it's just destruction because you get to see the bullets really going through the walls and paper flying everywhere. There's no CGI anywhere. So
that's true.
So it's fun if you like that in camera action and firing going on. It's good for that.
Yeah, when that's actually happening, I was somewhat interested, but there's no substance to it. It's like everything surrounding it is kind of bleh. Like, okay, let's talk about for example, the last action scene. A lot of explosions. Sometimes there's not even a lot of setup for it. It's just like, oh, like a car crashed into another car, but then it erupts into flame, but then it cuts back to Chuck Norris, like immediately, like a hard cut to him back in the office, just stalking people, and he's like moving super slow, and there's no one in sight, and it's like a static shot of him there for 30 seconds, and then back to the fire outside. Like, what? Like, this is not the way you keep up the tension.
Well, you need to show that it's a world war potentially going on in the streets of your hometown, and one man is able to stop the invading forces in your work, in your office space. So when you come in on Monday, you can be thankful that he didn't, shoot up your TPS reports or something.
This is why you need to work from home.
Yeah, true.
I think the only other highlight of the movie is just realizing how often Richard Lynch shoots people in the dick. See, he does it like multiple times in the movie, and the real highlight involving Richard Lynch is the way he dies, is because he gets blown up, and it's spectacular, but they don't even try to hide the fact that it's a mannequin, because you can see the mannequin head just flopping around. It's like in super slow-mo. It's very detailed. It's great. It's just so schlocky, and it's just a hard end. And
it's such a weird ending. You're just kind of staring blankly at this window, and then boom, Invasion USA. Like, let that be a lesson to you. Let that be a lesson to what happens when you let foreigners come into your country. Oh, God. Because that's the perfect setup for our next movie, where the villains really don't want foreigners coming into our country. More specifically, they don't want people of color coming into our country, because the best villains of all in any movie are Nazis and white supremacists.
Man, so if we save Top Dog for last, I was going to say that the villains in this movie are it would have been great because to save for last, because it's just so hilarious and so over the top, and I can't believe that this is in a children's film. We're talking about Top Dog.
I don't think Top Dog is supposed to be a children's film. I think they fucked up.
I don't know what the hell's happened here, because you can clearly tell how they edited this, and hell, the dialogue. Everything. The dialogue,
the whimsical music playing, but it's PG-13, and people are dying, and there are white supremacists in the movie. Like, this is not at all for children. Not at all. Not at all for children.
Zero. There's an iris wipe in the movie, and it even does the Looney Tunes sound effect as it's doing it. Yeah, it's meant for kids. This movie is meant for kids. I mean, okay. It's a dog movie. It's in the title. But you guys know what this is. This is your I can't say bottom of the barrel, because like in the 90s, and this movie was at 95, 96.
95, yeah.
The 90s, mid-90s. I remember going to freaking Blockbuster and seeing Air Bud 6. There's so many of these movies that came out at the time. This is like, what if your dog was your partner, your cop partner? Like, this is that movie. This is
this is a buddy cop movie, except
with the dog.
The two partners who are having unease with each other is a human cop and then a dog cop. That's the joke. That's the selling point to get people in the theaters. And the human cop is Chuck Norris. But at this time in 1995, his star power is definitely fading at this point. And man, when you first see him on screen, he's a mess. He's very disheveled. And I thought, oh boy.
He's not acting. That's him.
Yeah, I thought, oh man, he does not look good.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, he's probably been like 20 years in the career, in the industry already. So that's not really the thing I want to harp on. I mean, yes, I'm going to still keep iterating. It's a kids movie. This is clearly a kids movie.
This is PG-13. This is not for children.
I don't care. I don't care.
No, what I'm saying is though, they fucked up. Somebody thought like, okay, let's write a kids movie, but then they added Chuck Norris and Nazis into it, and people getting killed, people getting assassinated, police getting assassinated in their vehicles. This is not for children. Like, what happened? Yeah.
There's a tiny bit of swearing in it. So like that could easily be written down so it doesn't have to be in the PG-13 category. I don't get it. Like I like some things, small little edits, like, you know, shooting the cops or whatever, that could, you know, you just edit those out. Like, you know, you don't see the cops get shot. You just see, you know, it's implied with careful editing. All this could have flown better and made this into an appropriate children's film. So I find the final product really strange because you're right. It's like those little edit. The final cut is just it makes these weird choices. But you can't. On the other hand, you can't edit around the fact that you wrote this movie to have white supremacists as the villains. You made that conscious decision. So I don't know. But you know what the funny thing about this premise is that the villains are white supremacists, so obviously they're a threat in this world where there are no non-whites in the whole movie. There's like 2 non-whites. So it kind of like deflates the threat, you know?
Well, his superior officer, his sergeant is, I believe he's Japanese. I've seen that guy so many
Japanese,
times.
Yeah.
And then I think the other female officer might be non-white. I can't tell. But yes, this is a white movie about white supremacists.
Yeah, it's like, I want to commend the movie a little bit because it's like, well, at least you're kind of addressing it, but like the fact that there was like no non-white people in the movie.
Well, there is a I don't know. There's some weird gathering for racial unity at the end, and that's when they're like, hey, throw in some Indian people and then some Mexicans, and then, you know, that's the only time you get it.
Yeah, man, even that, like the idea, like, oh, the festival of unity or racial unity is like, that seems really cartoony. Like, like I don't know, something about that doesn't feel very. No, like it's not something. It's quite like a baseline understanding of how like people talk about race relations, right? It's so generic and basic. Well, but then
they don't even talk about race relations in this movie.
No, you don't. It's like that's the thing. So it's like, oh, you know, how do we solve inequality? Oh, let's just have a festival. No, let's not. Like, let's try to do political advocacy and all that shit. No, but that's not the point. Like, the funny thing about this is that the entire movie, Chuck Norris and his buddy cop Reno are trying to investigate and try to determine where the neo-Nazis are going to strike next, right? And they're always one step behind. They're trying to figure it out. So by the end of the film, how do they figure it out? They go to Chuck Norris goes to his mom, and his mom is like, well, don't you know tomorrow's Hitler's birthday?
You see the fucking light bulb like over his
head. And he's like, yeah, tomorrow's Chuck Norris' birthday.
Hitler's birthday.
Just Chuck Norris. Tomorrow. Well, I mean today. Yeah, sure, yeah. Tomorrow is Hitler's birthday, so obviously something bad's gonna happen on that day. And I'm like, what is this, written by a child? Like, why do you assume that? Like, that is such a wild assumption to make.
She was right.
She was right, though.
I think they're trying to make the connection that neo-Nazis are stupid, and so they'll just, of course it's going to be on Hitler's birthday. I mean, Nazis are clowns by indication from this movie as well, because literally clowns come to attack Chuck Norris. Inept clowns shooting up his house and then getting their asses kicked by Chuck Norris, a dog, and then another policewoman. Yeah. And the action in this movie, it's such a shame, because I was going down the rabbit hole, watching all the watching a bunch of his movies, his films, and seeing like, okay, the action's not that great, but at least you can see he's clearly doing a lot of the hits. He's doing the choreography as minimal as it is, and sometimes with that very minimal edits. And to see Top Dog, and just to see him get an edit on almost every hit. He just turns into a stunt double repeatedly. It's just non-stop stunt doubling. He can't do the spin kicks anymore by this movie. It's just his stunt double. He does a twirl and then cuts to that double.
Richard Norton. It's like, oh, look, Richard Norton. Richard Norton again. Did
he confirm that? I think I heard that somewhere.
Dude, it looks just like him.
I know,
like,
it does.
There is a scene, I mean, it's the scene, right? Where, I mean, the movie barely has any martial arts in it. I mean, I'd say maybe like 2 fights? Maybe, not 3. I'd say 3 fights, but they're heavily edited. I would say that they're not even real fights. There's one that you can say, okay, it's a fight scene. He's surrounded by a bunch of... Yeah, and it's like anytime it cuts to his stunt double, which is pretty much 80% of the shots... It looks exactly like Richard Norton.
Yeah.
His shape, like Richard's really tall, so like there's some like you can tell the big difference when Chuck Norris suddenly becomes really tall and lanky, and his facial hair looks really really thin in comparison.
Yeah.
So and Richard looks decent in it, but it's still edited to shit.
Well, it's edited a lot because Chuck Norris can't really do those moves anymore. He was kind of known for the kicks and then the spinning kicks of his time. And then, of course, they want to keep those signature things in there. But because he can't do it, well, you have to cut away to the stunt double a lot. And that's just what this is. It's one versus many. He can do the spinning back fist every now and then. But even then, it's still almost an edit, almost a cut on every single move he throws out. And it's a little sad to see, the degradation of the physicality of an action star, but it's understandable because that's just what it is. These action stars get older, so they can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, every action star from this era, of that generation, rather, like they eventually have to, or have had to do a kids movie at least once. So, we barely talked about the story besides the fact that we harped on the white supremacy thing. It's simple. It's so simple. Have you seen any buddy cop movie? You've seen this movie. Have you seen any movies involving dogs and where they're the center focus and it's a children's movie? Then you've seen this movie.
No, see, the problem is if you've seen a buddy cop movie, this film doesn't even do the buddy cop formula right. The two characters are at odds with each other. Sure, Chuck Norris doesn't like dogs. But at no point in the movie does the dog show Chuck Norris into his world and show him like, oh, if you do this like a dog, then maybe you gotta
sniff that ass.
Yeah, maybe you'll understand something. And Chuck Norris doesn't teach him anything from the white man's world, and the dog is like, oh yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Like they don't exchange each other's cultures.
That dog needs. Oh my god, that dog needs to think like a white supremacist.
No, Chuck Norris isn't a white supremacist. I hope not.
Oh god. This thought just came to my head. It's like about that Chuck Norris's his character's mother in the movie. It's like the fact that she knew it was Hitler's birthday. Is like. She's like, yeah, it's just common knowledge. I'm like, why do you know that? Like, why do you know that information? It's like, are you in on it? Actually, I was expecting that as a twist. But no, I mean the story's really simple. I mean you're not. I was gonna say you're not gonna watch this for the story. You're gonna watch it for the action, but you're not gonna watch this for the action because you know what kind of movie this is. It's meant for kids. I don't care what the rating says. It's not really a PG-13 movie. Like 13-year-olds are gonna look at this and be like, "What the fuck? Why am I watching this? Can I go back to watching Basic Instinct?" So something a little bit more my taste at that age. No, it's a strange film. I would obviously wouldn't recommend it, but it is weirdly. It's okay. For me, it was my favorite of the three, and that's not saying much. It's not a good movie, but because of how ridiculous it is, and the fact that we have Aryans as the villain in a kids movie, I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this because it's so stupid.
It's got the most interesting premise, but it's also the most wasted premise because they should have leaned heavily into the fact that Nazis are the villains. We should have got more race-related things in there to provide tension, because ultimately Nazis are the villains, and it didn't even have to be Nazis. It could have just been anybody, really, because they don't do really anything specific to invoke terror from their specific organization, really.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's the bare minimum to try to make a positive message that racism bad.
Nazis
but
bad.
Let's not
punch Nazis.
Nazis bad. Yeah. And kids are going to understand racism bad, but let's not go into that any more detailed. Granted, it's a 90s film, different era, kind of. Different era, so I'm going to cut him some slack, but still, it's still ridiculous. But it was my favorite of the three because of how stupid this film was. But we have one more movie to talk about, and you would think that this movie, which we're going to save... I think we're saving this for our Patreon section,
yes,
right?
we are. Yep.
Okay, right, good. Glad we talked about it before I started rambling on about it. This one movie, let's leave it as a surprise, for you guys.
I don't think we've ever done that before.
Yeah. If you guys are curious to know what this last movie is, consider subscribing to us on Patreon. We're going to talk about it in greater detail. It has the most fights out of all the movies that I've seen, for sure. But I guess for you too, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say the most fights. This is probably, minus Way of the Dragon, obviously, this is probably Chuck Norris's best fight film. Best choreography. It has one fight in this movie in particular that I thought, oh wow, choreography here, pretty good. Not a fan of the lack of music, but choreography, definitely good. Sure. But the thing is, I've just watched a bunch of his films on Tubi. I don't know if there may be other ones that are not on Tubi, that he just has some great fight that I missed, but nobody mentioned anything else. I got Lone Wolf McCade as a mention, and then I got this movie as a mention. So, if you know of some good Chuck Norris fights, you might know what we're going to talk about. But if you don't, and you're still curious, and you still want to hear about Chuck Norris, then consider subscribing to us on Patreon.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that much more of a breakdown, but we'll do a little bit more service to this movie than the other two that we just talked about. I think. I don't know. I have a lot of notes on this movie. So, you already said it. You did the plug already, so let's talk about the movie. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. We're at the point where we give our recommendations, but there's a whole wealth of audio you would be listening to here if you follow us on Patreon. There you can listen to the entire episode, including an exclusive action breakdown of the fights in the movie. And now on to our final thoughts. That's the movie. What did we talk about? I don't know, because you should listen to us on Patreon.
We're not letting the non-Patreon listeners know what we spoke about?
Nope. You guys gotta chill out and help us and support us if you guys want to know. That was that movie. And
such a lame ending. So lame.
Yeah, that movie in general sucks. I really don't get it. Maybe I get it. Like if you were Chuck Norris aficionado or you followed his career and you're like, yeah, I love that movie. Good for you. I don't know. I found it really boring, and I watched it twice. I tried to look at the silver lining, and I was like, yeah, maybe that final fight's good, but the rest of the film, God, I don't know. I just couldn't get over it. Like it's just not an entertaining film whatsoever. I seriously dislike that movie. There's not enough redeeming qualities to it. Like you can say that like, oh yeah, it has no budget, so whatever. But like, you can still make a great movie with no budget, and the creative decisions they decide to go with it to make this film, I don't agree with. It's like those are not budget specific. So weird, boring movie that has a glimmer of good action, but not worth it in my opinion. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I don't think it's that bad, but it is pretty boring. I think there's some hilarity sprinkled about it because there's McDojo stuff in it, and I think that stuff is really funny. Yeah. But ultimately, yeah, it was such a slog to get through. And it's so weird. We're talking about a movie that if you aren't subscribed to us on Patreon, you don't even know what we're talking about. We're just talking about some random movie that's really boring. But it is probably the best Chuck Norris fight after Way of the Dragon.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. I will give you that.
It's got to be because, I mean, it's you know, like he didn't really do too much good fight choreography after Way of the Dragon because he went, you know, came back to America and he got what he got. He became action hero. Probably better known for missing in action, so maybe that just propelled him to do less martial arts and more, you know, Vietnam style gun shooting. I don't know. I actually never saw the movie.
Yeah. You've seen a lot more Chuck Norris movies than I have now, so I'll leave you as the Chuck Norris aficionado of the two of us, because I knew that his movies were more, you know, general action category. He might be a phenomenal martial artist, and I mean, dude, he's a black belt in like 3 different disciplines. So like, you know, and he's made a career of, you know, being an on-screen fighter technically, but you know, his movies are just okay to me. His action style, like through the years, have always been kind of too generic for my taste. So yeah, I just never got over it. But I'd say out of the 3 that we talked about, I'd say my favorite is still Top Dog, and that is like, you know, giving it a 1 out of 10 versus, you know, like a 0.5.
Oh man, no way.
Maybe, no. Definitely. No, those numbers are really exaggerated. Like they're not they're not like the worst of the worst. And really not. But like these movies, they're not good either.
Yeah, that's.
I'd say like Top Dog's still the best of the worst here. You know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Top Dog was so bland to me. I think the premise is great, but the movie is not funny. Like I wanted it to be dumb. I wanted it to be funny.
Yeah.
It's really not. Invasion USA, that's really where it's at. That's a fun action movie, but it's also kind of boring, and it's not at all a martial arts movie. So it's like, what is it doing here on our podcast? But hey, we cover action movies sometimes, so
yeah,
there it is. That if you want to know of the 5 films we talked about, you know, either you can go with Top Dog, your choice, or you can go with Invasion USA. Or you can go with Mystery Movie, which has the best fights outside of Way of the Dragon for Chuck Norris, maybe, at least in my opinion. So there you go. There are your choices. Hey, if there's other good Chuck Norris fights that maybe are out there, let us know, right? We'll watch it. I'll watch it.
What about Lone Wolf McQuaid? It's
okay. I still think Mystery Movie that we're not saying is better than Lone Wolf.
Okay, all right. I don't know. I like the fact that he fought David Carradine in it. Does he choke him out at the end?
I see what you did.